Hello, everyone. This is Lenard Guzman here with Emily Robinson on the Modern Divorce Podcast. It's not July yet, almost. The July 4th weekend's coming up. We're a week before, or a week and a half, whatever. So it's June 24th, 2022. We're here. We just got the news, I think yesterday, was it late yesterday, the Roe v. Wade decision, because I want to kind of lead into that, because Emily is, kind of familiar with court stuff since she's a lawyer. So Emily, let's lead off with this. Supreme Court justice voted on this. How does this all work? Whether politics aside, how is kind of the nuts and bolts of it, the mechanics of it? So there was a vote.
Right. So, yeah, and I'm going to express this totally non-politically, because we probably have listeners on it's a very political issue, and there's probably listeners on both sides of the spectrum. But just from a legal perspective, it's pretty fascinating. Case law gets developed from judges ruling on cases, and then whatever they rule in the Supreme Court becomes law if the legislature hasn't ruled on it. So Roe v. Wade was like an interpretation of the Constitution that stated that, there is a right to abortion under the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. This case, is my understanding, I haven't had a chance to read everything yet, but says that there isn't a right to abortion under the Due Process Clause. And because this case was ruled on later, that new ruling trumps the old rulings, and it will remain in place until there's another ruling. But what the effect really is that it's basically saying federal law cannot govern abortion, meaning the states will make their own decisions. So states have the right to outlaw abortion, to not outlaw abortion, to do whatever they want. And so it just makes it not a federal issue. It's now a state's issue. And it's interesting because I wonder if we'll see a lot of migration between states. I already see a lot of people leaving California. Some of that's political reasons, and some of it is that it's just so expensive to live here that a lot of people just can't afford it. But if we're trending toward states deciding the issues more than the federal government, which is that's more like a right-wing conservative approach, then I wonder if people are going to start moving to states that allow what they want. So it's the same thing with gay marriage, right? People would move to states where gay marriage was legal if they were living in a state where it wasn't legal. Now that may be what happens with abortion. So it's just interesting from a legal perspective. Will you see states go more like red and blue because people really migrate toward the states that uphold their beliefs and their values? So, but really fascinating. It seems interesting that, justices can interpret the Constitution so different, in different time periods and different generations. There's always going to be unhappy people on both sides. So that's the point of having a free country. And if you don't like the ruling, you still have the right to live in a state where, that they allow abortion. If you do like the ruling, then you're happy today, and tomorrow there'll be a ruling that makes you unhappy. So that's kind of how it goes.
All right, so I got a follow-up question. Not, I guess, for the 99% of people who aren't lawyers. So this Roe v. Wade, it was passed in, I don't know,
the 70s.
Probably yeah. So it
73.
So they were like, hey, in 2022, we got to talk about this again and renew it. Is this and how does that process come about?
Yeah. No, good question. It's because a new case. I'm trying to look up the name of the case. It was oh gosh, oh, Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization. That new case ended up in front of the Supreme Court, and they ruled on that case, and that ruling is what undid Roe v. Wade. So if nothing had ever come up to the Supreme Court again to challenge Roe v. Wade or allow for a different opinion, then it would have never been touched again. It's not like they review old things. It's that a new case was put in front of them.
In this case, this particular case, which I mean changes for generations to come, it just recently happened. I assume within the last 5 years.
Yeah, no, this case was a case because there was a Mississippi law that banned any abortion, almost all abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. You couldn't have an abortion after 15 weeks. And that ended up in, I'm trying to see if it says what year it was, but that ended up in the Supreme Court. And that opens the door for the Supreme Court to say, you know, that law is okay or not okay. And that opens the door for the Supreme Court to say, yeah, that law's fine. The state can make that law. And by the way, every state can make their own law. And we're not going to control what you can do and not do. If a state wants to ban abortions after 1 week, they can do it. If a state doesn't want to ban abortions, you know, at all, they can do it. So that's why.
Gosh, there's so many jokes in my head. Not that it's a funny thing, but because I dabble in stand-up, and there's so many topics like how does a man, like a male, have a say in the ruling of a woman, you know, decision here? It's like it makes no sense. It's like a male, the male OB doctor who none of the female patients want to take an appointment. They all want to take the female OB doctor's appointments. I mean, like on the reverse, it's like going for a checkup for a prostate doctor. I can't recall a female doctor. Like what do men have? Why are they even in this conversation?
You mean the justices? Are you talking about the justices?
Yeah, I mean all across the board, because this is a woman's right, either way, right? So, but nonetheless, they're the decision makers in a way, because they're the majority in a lot of these states and court.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way our political system is structured. And that's like a whole other conversation of, does there need to be a different structure? But our government is basically, you know, voting by representation. So it's not like we vote on everything. Our elected representatives vote, which means that, you know, so like when they vote on Supreme Court justices, we're not voting. Our elected representatives are voting, and they're supposed to speak for us, you know, and or on new laws and things like that. And obviously one person can't speak for everybody, but that's the system we have. And it turns out that it ends up a lot of men are the ones in those positions and voting on stuff. And the only way to change that is to vote in more women.
Okay.
You know,
yeah, so,
and I think all the women on the Supreme Court, except for one, I believe, dissented. Yeah, the 3 judges filed a dissenting opinion. I'm just looking it up to see if it says. But I believe one woman justice did support it.
So this is on I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
This is on the macro level. So on a micro level, right? Because this has a lot to do with family law and how individual families are affected. So ideally, right, you would have a pregnancy, you know, probably on the border of a wanted pregnancy or unwanted. and there's like outliers. I mean, I hope of like rape victims, teen pregnancies. So is this an issue that you run into in, I know we're on the West Coast, so there's probably not as much friction as, probably, I'm looking at the map where these are legal, illegalized abortion. Is there a lot of friction when, because I assume it's sometimes a package deal with like deciding on a pregnancy and then a divorce coming up. Is this what topics come up that you're hearing?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, a lot of times it's, people with a teenage daughter and the people are going through a divorce and that teenage daughter may be pregnant. And then you got to, like, if the parents aren't on the same page with what to do, that can cause a lot of stress for the teenager. And that's like a whole issue. And I actually see that a lot with children that want to transition their gender. Frequently, though, I will say, got to commend the parents. They manage to put their differences aside and get on the same page so that they can help their children through difficult times. I've seen that happen a lot, and I think that's great. But if they can't get on the same page, it makes it really hard for everyone, especially the child who's going through whatever they're going through.
Okay, well, I guess we'll continue this topic because it's I guess it's not going anywhere because the way the Supreme Court justices are they're perpetual or they're lifetime terms. So we'll figure this out later. Let's kind of move on here. Let's get into the news of the day related to divorce. So this part of the podcast, we go over the news and trends and things that come up. A lot of celebrity news, a lot of today looks like billionaires always get the highest headlines for this, and a lot of things come up like financial things, child custody. So let's get into it. So, oh wow, Rupert Murdoch and Jerry Hall are said to be divorcing. The media mogul's fourth divorce is unlikely to change the ownership structure of Mr. Murdoch's empire, but it could reverberate through companies such as Fox News and the Wall Street Journal. So this is Mr. Murdoch's fourth divorce, and it's unlikely to mess with the structure of his businesses. So the split could reverberate. So I guess, what's weird is there's a show based on HBO, Succession. I heard it's loosely based on it, and this is a really good storyline, even though it's real life. I'm supposed to be joking about it. So during the early days of the marriage, aides and people close to the family said he was happy devoting more time to his new wife, leaving room for his children. Most importantly, his eventual chosen successor, Lachlan, to assert themselves at the top of the corporate hierarchy. Not a lot here. This is from New York Times, and it'll come up. But typically, if it's a fourth marriage, I think it's the guy's problem. But in this thing, I'm sure there's an ironclad prenup. And so, like, how does this all work out? Is this an easier divorce more than others? And there's like first divorce. So can you like compare first divorce, fourth divorce?
Well, it really depends on the person. I mean, they may have lost their will to fight, and so it is easier, or they may be really struggling to hold on to what they have left, so they don't want to fight. So they have to fight. If you're already paying alimony to 3 prior wives, there's not that much left for the fourth one. So I think that always causes a lot of tension and stress. And, alimony doesn't stop when you remarry, it stops when your spouse remarries. So if you're already paying to 3 people, you may now be paying 4 people. And now you're splitting, you already gave away, 3/4 of your stuff. Now you got to give away another quarter. Like, obviously you have more stuff now, but it's like, it's hard. So, hopefully most people that are going into a 4th marriage have done a prenup so that they at least know, it's smoother and they know what they'll be holding on to.
So, okay, let's assume there's no prenup. First wife takes 50%, and then the second wife takes 50% of 50%. Then the third wife takes 50% of what's that, like 25%. So it just keeps reducing his stash of money.
But hopefully after each wife, your stash has gotten bigger. So but yes, exactly. I remember hearing, when Robin Williams died, which was so sad. I loved him. Like he had, I think, 3 ex-wives or something. And he was really depressed. And some of the depression, I think, was from the divorces and having to just like, it's a lot to carry the burden of 3 other people you're supporting, and I don't know if it was the money that was depressing or just the loss of 3 marriages, but yeah, it was hard. It is hard.
Ooh, yeah, that's like almost probably 3 marriages, but I guess those are rich people problems. Okay.
True.
So next article, this one's kind of got in our keyword search, but so okay, this one's kind of interesting because I'm into this thing. Well, my wife suffers from this. I don't. Sleep divorce. So insider.com, Carson Daly. Remember that guy?
Yeah.
Well, now he's in The Voice, so he's relevant. Okay, Carson Daly.
He's on The Voice.
Right, he's the host. Like he does the beginning intro. Okay.
He was like a host when I was a kid.
Yeah, TRL, like MTV, like that was the only game in town.
He's like one of those guys that doesn't age. Like he looks same, like Tom Cruise, no matter what age they are.
He has the best job. He's just a host. Like he just intros you into the voice, then he's done. He's done for the day. He can just leave.
Right?
Okay, so he's into this sleep divorce, and he says it's the best thing that's ever happened to his marriage. So, him and his wife have been sleeping separately for years. Said that they started their sleep divorce while his wife was pregnant with their 4th child. And he says 1 in 4, with a stat, it says 1 in 4 married couples practice sleep divorce, saying it improves rest in a relationship. You ever hear this? Is this just the Hollywood thing, or is this? Would you advise this?
Just the sleeping in separate rooms.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's just a Hollywood thing. I have heard of that. I think sometimes it actually helps people get better sleep. I don't advise it. I'm not sure it's the best thing for a marriage, but if you have a kid sleeping in your bed, or one of you snores a lot and you just can't get any sleep with the other, I don't think it's the worst idea if you're going to be annoyed by the person snoring all night or keeping you up and then resentful. It's probably better if they're sleeping in a different room. It could be better for your marriage.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I have to pitch this to my wife, but we'll see. Okay. Let's get into the part of the show where we ask Emily anything. People will post things that they're going through, some things like starting in their divorce journey, problems with, child custody. Maybe sometimes the child has problems going from parent to parent. So let's go through this one. This is a mental health issue here. Someone posted. So earlier this month, my husband left me for someone else. He got all his stuff and left, but now he's begging and telling me and crying, telling me he wants to hurt himself because I don't want to be with him and let him come back. He said that he doesn't want to be with the girl anymore because he's not like me. I told him I'm not ready to be with him right now, and he Is he just trying to make it seem like I did something wrong? Am I wrong not wanting it?
No, I mean, like, you feel how you feel when you've been hurt or wronged, um, and you're not ready to forgive, which you may never be ready for. That's your call, like, you got to do what feels right to you. And if you feel betrayed or hurt, like, take your time and figure out what it is that you want and if you can get over it or not. And maybe you can't, and maybe you both need to move on, but it's absolutely not wrong to feel that way.
All right, your next post about kids and child custody. So, this parent's being consistently criticized. Has anyone had to deal with an ex that's constantly criticizing her parenting? He sends me very rude messages almost every time the kids go back to his place about something that I did wrong. I've tried having conversations with him, but it's never productive and usually turns into him screaming at me. We got divorced because everything turned into an explosive argument, and now here we are divorced, and he's still trying to pick fights with me. What's the best thing to do?
That's really hard. When it's hard, you get divorced because you don't get along and then you still continue to argue. There are like couples courses or co-parenting courses or courses on how to get along with your ex that I actually think can be really helpful, or doing some type of family therapy together can be really helpful. And I think that's probably the kind of thing that needs to happen in this situation. If you continue to have a lot of animosity after the divorce, but you still need to be in contact with each other, you just gotta find professional help to be able to find a way to communicate.
Okay, that's all the time we have for today on the Modern Divorce Podcast. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you next week.